Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of Indie Game Dev Report, a podcast whose format is continually changing, apparently. But rest assured, it's definitely about indies. So, there's been a little bit of a push in the community for the show to have more news topics. But in today's climate, that would kind of absorb the whole show. So, I've decided to keep the news to sort of ground level reporting style. That being said, certain things are just too important to be left untouched, and racism is certainly among those topics. So, because I have a microphone, it's kind of my duty to tell indies to take a stand against racism. People outside the US might not be aware of what's going on here, so it's kind of my job also to make myself clear. The racism and violence is so bad in the US that I'm asking the indie community not only within the US, but all over the world to stand up against racism. It's pretty simple. If you see it, stop it. If a network of yours says to ask you not to share gratitude for other cultures publicly because of their political agenda, do the right thing and sever that connection. Stop the problem before it enters your network, to preserve your network. That being said, Black Lives Matter. That shouldn't be confusing. If it is confusing, do some research. On with game dev. So I have a great interview with a new friend of mine with far more experience than myself. But before we get into that, I want to talk about some of the format changes in the show real quick. So if you're just listening to the show, that's perfectly fine. I'm all for audio. That's actually how I prefer to absorb this kind of information. So hence the podcast. But since the show has always had a YouTube channel with game footage and images from whoever we're talking to and that type of stuff, now we're actually playing with streaming. So the recording of the interview segments would then be edited down, and the audio and the video would work both separately and together. So that's kind of what just formed naturally, and that's just the direction it's taking us right now. So we'll just see where it takes us in the future, but so far the YouTube channel is actually turning out really great, and it works really well as a resource to see the game footage from the indies that get interviewed on the show. So that's really cool, and we're looking forward to a format evolution. I'm alright with that. Okay, so right now, without further ado, I have this excellent interview with Red Vonix. I'm pleased to share it with you. Alright, I've got Red Vonix, and Drunken Robot Games is the name of your company, correct? Is that correct?
Yeah, Drunk Robot Games. That and Halloween Games, my companies.
I love that name. And now you're working on Purrtato Tail. Right?
Yes.
And how long has that been in development?
We actually started in late 2015. Primarily, it's been a side project for all the years since then, and just been kind of getting it all together and making it as we have the time and bring it together.
Awesome. Yeah, and you've been in the industry for a while too. This isn't your first game, I don't think, right?
Oh no, I've worked on 30-some projects on console games, arcade games, theme parks, science centers. It's actually spent 7 weeks in China last year on a theme park project.
Wow.
I'm just sharing this on Twitter right now. That's why I keep looking at the other monitor. I swear I still love all of you.
No, that's absolutely fine. And since this is kind of a new format, for anyone who's just listening, we've actually got a stream going for the first time on this podcast. And you can see our faces if you want to check it out. And we're going to, edit it and try to make it as postable as possible. But currently I'm on Twitch at /RikOclon, one word, RikOclon. And, it'll be around. It's easy to find. If you search for RikOclon is where I normally stream. So that's where it's kind of going around, which is just my name. And then IGDR podcast, if you look for that, you'll find the links to the show. And then from there, you'll be able to find the links to the stream, no problem, or to the video of the stream. So now that I've got that all out of the way, this is a little bit different. So just, take that into consideration. Yeah. All right, so I just read a bit about your devlog, and it's really cool. Now, are these features that you just showed me here, are these new features that you've just added recently, or are some of them a little bit older and that and they're just still important, or
Most of
getting updated?
Oh, sorry. Most of it's actually been in the game for quite a while now. We
Okay.
just turned it all off because the introduction had been showing. So let me rewind there for a second. The introduction we've been showing was based more off of things like Super Metroid, where the beginning of the game shows a small segment of the gameplay, and then once you get kind of your feet wet in the main game, then we go through and we start revealing more things. So we've got all these additional features and functionality in the game that aren't shown in the intro because of that, because that's kind of the right way to do a game. However, we pitched this game around to numerous publishers, investors, and so forth, and everybody says we have no game. They basically say it's a really simple, crappy, little, unfinished junk title to them. So
Wow.
we kind of looked at it and said, why? And we kind of went back and said, okay, well, we're not Metroid. So let's take these features and build an entirely new introduction that has a lot more of them. So we're going from something like 5% of the overall game mechanics to closer to like 60 to 70%, and there's still going to be a lot for the player to discover as they go through the rest of the game.
Very cool. Very cool. And so you've decided to differentiate yourself. And from the footage that I've seen, watching Our Day Gamer play, there's some really cool puzzles that I've never seen before. Like you're kind of directing these cats, and they kind of have like different powers, right?
Right. So one of the main game mechanics we have is you collect these characters throughout the game, different Purrtatos, Purrmatos, just all kinds of different cat fruits and vegetables. And I got a perfect thing for this. As you collect them, people who are unprepared are sexier. Just remember that. Let's take a moment for that to sink in. Okay. So you collect your characters, and each character has their own unique ability. So this one's ability is pink and cute. So you might be able to place that in the game world and do something pink and cute. No, pink and cute's not actually an ability. They're more like slight pain, transmit electricity, squirt water, and so forth. But one thing they also do is they all can stick. So we just stick this here at the edge of the screen, and then you can place another one here, and now you have two ledges, and you can jump from this one onto this one, where otherwise you're going to have too far of a distance. But you could also like make ramps out of them and so forth.
That's a very interesting take for a platformer puzzler. Because I mean, it's looking at it, you can see it and say like, oh, that's kind of like bridge making, and there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do it. You're kind of making a ladder. It's not too different from say stacking blocks, except for that they kind of stick to each other. They're magnetic, and
Right.
they're characters. So I mean, that has that added fun element to it, and of course they're cats, so it's extremely cute. Now, just to stick on the cat topic for a second, are you a cat owner, a cat lover, or are you more cats are on the internet? Cats are cool.
Massive cat lover.
Okay, I kind of got that assumption from you, but wasn't
Like,
sure if
all
you
the
wanted to
cats-
drive the point home.
Yeah, all the cats in the game are actually cats that live with me or that I'm related to in some fashion or other, friends' cats, and so forth.
That's awesome. So
Like,
they're named for the actual cats.
Yeah. Even during the ending credits of the game, we'll actually kind of show you who played each cat in the game based on their real life counterparts.
Is there pictures of the cats?
Yeah.
That's a great idea. I'm sure the cats appreciate it too. Have you shown any of the cats yet?
Oh, yeah. Lots of it. They love it.
They watch the credits and like, that's me.
And once we do plan to do a Kickstarter here at some point, since while investors don't seem to be that interested in the game, people, on the other hand, not that investors aren't people, but people without money, investor level money, love the game, and they all want to throw money at it. So, so at least the fans believe in the game, even if the investors don't. But because of that, we're going to do a Kickstarter. So we should be able to get our funding there, since so many people are very excited about the title. And we're going to have some tiers there will allow people to do things like put your cat in the game. They can be an NPC of some kind. They can be a key component character. They can be one of your collectible characters. we'll figure out the right ways to do it and what excites people the most. But we know that a lot of people want their cats in the game, so we're doing.
That's a great idea. I mean, personally, I don't have a cat, but I've had numerous cats die on me, and I have pictures of them, and I remember their names, and I would love for them to be in a video game. I just can't deal with another cat death right now.
I actually had a cat die on me last year, and we have a little shrine to him in our living room. So yeah, it's rough.
I'm sorry to hear that. But yeah, I mean, animals of all kinds are great. I like cats, but I don't have any animals currently. I work too hard. I don't know. It's hard to keep things going without an animal. I don't want an animal to have to. I don't want to forget feeding it or something because I've got too many things on my mind. I'd feel terrible. Anyways, yeah. So back to the game. So the magnetic platforming aspect of it is really cool. I really like the powers of it. And you're saying that what you've seen is that the publishers they don't see it as a big money maker. They don't see it driving their revenue that they're looking for. So what I'm thinking is that that kind of opens a door for you. I mean, maybe it closes a door, but it opens a window where this opportunity now arrives where you can kind of do things that the big companies aren't able to do because they have shareholders that are making sure that they don't put out games that are let's say risky to them. Right. But let's put it in a new perspective of risk versus reward, where you are creating a community regardless of how well this game is performing right now. And that community is going to help you throughout your career as a solo developer and hopefully for whoever company you work for when you bring your community to them, because that's the way communities are working these days.
Yeah, I mean, you have a decent sized and growing community too.
And and I've been doing a lot of work in community development right now and community management because, I mean, I've got a game that needs a lot of work. I do. I'm in the same boat as you where it needs a ton of work, but the community is becoming so much more important than having a game that's finished. Don't get me wrong, finish your game, have something that you can show people, but already having some stuff under my belt, it's now really important to get the people involved. So the footwork of going, almost door to door, so to speak, and making friends, not so much, spamming or linking door to door, but going and making dev friends. I mean, that's huge. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is that the network connection is a lot stronger than I think a lot of companies are seeing. They kind of see games as like, oh, the community came with the game and it goes with the game, and then let's start it again with this game. And sometimes it's like that, especially with AAA. But with indies, it's a lot more supportive, I feel like. Is that what you're seeing with your community?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we got a pretty large and growing community, especially for a smaller indie project. And they've all been extremely supportive. They love to play test builds, give a lot of great feedback. They share it with other people. And we've actually grown to the point that I'll meet people completely unrelated to games. Like I'll go with somebody from a dating site or something, and she'll be like, "Oh yeah, I know this guy. He's talking about this Purrtato game. You're making that?" I'm like, "Oh wow, okay." So that actually just great. Yeah,
I mean, there's nothing better than hearing about your game in the public, just being out and about and hearing about it in the wild. That's amazing. I mean, it's probably not even the same. I've never worked for a AAA company, so I can't tell you what that's like. But I could imagine if someone was talking about your game that you were working on at AAA, it would still feel good. Like, yeah, I worked on that. People are talking about it. But it wouldn't feel nearly as good as if it was just you and you're an indie without some huge marketing budget behind you promoting the crap out of your game, and still people are coming saying, "Hey, have you heard of this game?" I mean, that's vastly different, if you ask me.
I should say though, it's not just me. I actually have a small team because I have a Loss, the famous musician. He's been doing our soundtrack. We have another musician also who's helping out by Devin TM, he goes by. And we have Mario Santos, who's actually from the old Read Only Memories team. he jumped over to us, and he's been doing our art.
So how many is that total?
Including me, we got 3, 4 people.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so a very, very small team, but yeah, I mean that's what it takes. And like I started my game by myself, but now I've got people in the community that are starting to join the team because it takes a team to make a game. It does. Yeah, but that's awesome. Do you want to go into your background a little bit about like where you got your start in games and what kind of? I mean, I know that you're an entertainer.
Yes.
I know that you
love
magic, and I know that you've got a background in performance, right?
Kind of. I mean, so when I was younger, I wanted to be an actor. Well, actually, no. First, I wanted to be a stage musician. I mean, that's musician. So I wanted to be a stage magician. David Copperfield is like my biggest idol imaginable. And eventually I got into video games, put on a ton of weight because all I do is play video games. And then I wanted to make video games instead of being a stage musician or an actor, because I also wanted to be an actor for a bit. And I kind of got into video games, kind of fell into making video games. I was like, I can kind of act and magician all at once here. All I got to do is learn math. So I did. And I started playing around with games probably in the early 90s because I'm an old man. So started in the early 90s, then got my first unpaid job in games because games don't pay money. You don't get into games if you actually need to make money to live. Got my first unpaid job in games in 2001, not the Space Odyssey, alas. And that turned into an actual paying job in 2005. Yeah, 2005. Then I started my first company in 2008. Ran it straight into the ground. The crater's still there. 2010, I started Cerulean Games, which is my contract studio, which is still around. But as most of you know, contract work is entirely dried up. So there's very little there to do. And that's been around and is still around. We still get a little bit of low-paying contracts. But we still get stuff. And 2016, I founded Drunk Robot Games specifically to make my own games, and we're like, well, let's make Purrtato Tail under Drunk Robot Games. And
is Purrtato Tail the first of Drunk Robot Games?
The first Drunk Robot title, yeah. Cerulean Games though has done a lot of stuff. Sure. A lot of branded projects back in the past. Still some branded projects actually. But yeah, just lots of stuff. So really, Drunk Robot is the same people in Cerulean Games. So in a way, it's the company's first game, but the company's 20-something project.
Sure. So I mean, that's perfect. I mean, you kind of need some background. Even if you're just a solo dev or something like that, you kind of have to have some background projects to fall back on, or I mean, to have learned from. Fall back on was the wrong word. But yeah, so that's really cool. As far as all of the different projects that you've worked on, is there any one that you could talk about that stands out to you as like your favorite that you would think of, like your favorite project?
Let me think. Sorry, I'm inviting more people to the stream here.
No,
also.
that's absolutely fine. And I have to apologize. I did not title the stream properly. It probably has like the last thing that I streamed, which is, I don't even know, probably something in VR or something like that. I completely forgot the title of it. I mean, that's like one of my things. I always forget the title of the stream.
Projects that are like extra special to me.
Yeah.
Or
something you learned a lot from, or something like that.
There'd be a number of them. I mean, the one that took me in China last year for 7 weeks, that was definitely a huge experience because here we are working on these interactive experiences for a theme park in a total different country where it needs to be both in English and Mandarin. So I'm trying to pick up what Mandarin I can and such and go over there. And I already speak a bit of Japanese. So I sort of had an introduction because a lot of the Japanese kanji is similar to the symbols in Mandarin. So that kind of helped me a little bit. But going over there and just being there and seeing how things are there in a totally different world, and not just as a visitor side, but actually helping out and doing such there. That was a huge experience that I absolutely adored, and I'd love to have more like that. But that whole project was just great in general.
That sounds amazing. It really does. Can you talk about that project at all, or is that kind of under wraps?
I can. I was never given the okay if I could actually say the name of the theme park.
Okay, that's fine.
I can at least say it's a massive brand, and yes, you have heard of it.
Okay, then I know exactly what you're talking about. That's really cool.
Well, you may or may not. There's a lot of theme parks there, but it's in June. I'll say that much.
Okay, and if it's what I'm thinking of, then it specializes in VR and AR?
No.
No? Okay, well then it's not what I'm thinking of at all. Then yeah, there is a lot.
But that was a great experience. The game, we did a game for Steve Aoki a while back, and that was a great experience too, since I got to actually hang out with Steve and be in the VIP area on stage with him and such, and just chat with him, kind of see how he thinks and kind of stuff he wants to make.
No, I'm unfamiliar with that person.
He is a sort of like an EDM DJ artist guy. Really, really famous, and this works pretty good actually. I listened to a lot of his music while we were doing that project. Truthfully, I never heard of him either before the game, but then I looked him up. I'm like, oh my god, how have I not heard of this?
Okay.
So,
well, I mean, there's a lot of artists out there, right now. Visibility is hard for musicians too.
It is. But no, he's great, and the game was a great project. Unfortunately, like most mobile games, just the game didn't take off. Everybody who played it adored it. It just didn't make the rounds like it needed to from the marketing. I mean, not blaming the marketing company, but I mean, people didn't see the marketing or whatever, so it just didn't really get picked up as it should have.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great title and a really fun experience going to Vegas and everything.
Cool.
Did a Power Rangers game, but that was the experience was questionable, but the game was fun. Our client for there doesn't exist anymore. I don't think, from what I understand. But I mean, yeah, a lot of good, a lot of bad. Like any development studio and anybody who's been doing this for 20 some years. I've met a lot of celebrities, hung out with a lot of them just because of them being related projects. That's been a really cool experience. I try not to brag too much about, be like, oh my god, I know them, and so forth. Or I have them on my phone. That makes it awkward. They're like, who on your phone? I'm like, nobody. Go back to your ramen.
Sure.
So I just quietly have my text messages with people. But all of that kind of comes together into a long-term experience or group of experiences that, I don't know, I guess I'm rambling and trying to say I can't really just pick one thing. It's really just all of it together.
Honestly, that's kind of what I was hoping for, because that's how people who don't have a lot of experience, that's kind of how you learn how to aspire. Because when you're like, oh, I just want to freelance, you don't know what kind of jobs are coming your way. You really don't. And if you think you do, you don't. I'm sorry, because if you really need the money, you're going to kind of end up taking jobs that maybe you don't exactly know what you're doing, but you do know enough, and then you can learn the rest, right? Because let's face it, development is more about how you learn and not what you know. That's the way I look at it. But yeah, I mean, that's great that you've got so much experience, and I'm super happy to have you as a network and a friend, and I'm sure everyone else, especially the Indie Dev World Order, all of those cool cats in there, everyone on Twitter, the kind of close-knit community, which is really huge. It's really awesome to have met you and talk to you about this stuff. So
likewise, I mean, love you all too. I can't really do the heart with my hands. My hands are not that skilled, so here we can do this.
I don't think I've ever even tried to do a hand.
I am not that man.
Cool. So as far as inspiration for Purrtato Tail, I mean, you say it's a Metroidvania, and I definitely see more Metroid influence than Vania influence, but I don't really know how those terms describe the game. Anyway, I see it as a platformer puzzler, but it's your game.
It's been.
Want to go into inspiration a bit?
Yeah, actually, let me touch the Metroidvania thing first.
Sure.
It's been hard to really pick a proper description for that because for a while we said Metroidvania. And when the game got announced for the Switch platform, a lot of people came back and be like, oh, God, another Metroidvania. But then also people said, that's not Metroidvania. So I kind of pulled back. I'm like, okay, wait. What is a Metroidvania? Are we a Metroidvania? And talking to my contacts in Japan, they also admitted that in Japan, nobody knows what a Metroidvania is. That term doesn't really exist. Well, it's starting to get recognized in Japan, but for the most part, they don't know what it is over there. That's very much a Western term. Mm-hmm. So we started saying, what else can we call this? And I've been kind of, in a lot of ways, going with open world puzzle platformer with JRPG elements.
Wow.
And that's been sort of really cool for now, but we're also not exactly open world. Huh?
If you ask me, that does sound more interesting. It really does. The open world puzzler RPG, did you say?
Yeah. I mean, we are an open world, but at the same time, we're not because, I just finished playing Death Stranding, which Hideo Kojima, great game. Really was. And I love all of his work, all the way going back to his very first stuff. Snatcher needs a remake. Snatcher 2021. Come on, let's get it, man. Let's do it. Anyway, I just finished playing Death Stranding, and that is a true open world title. And there's a lot of debate what makes an open world. Like, does it have loading screens? Does it have a lot of stuff like that? But you look at Death Stranding, it does not. But then you look at a game like Skyrim, and Skyrim is like the penultimate of open world titles. And yes, it does have loading screens. You go in between in and out of towns, the world map, dungeons, and so forth. So I still don't know what the hell to call it. In a lot of ways, we are an open world title because if you have the stuff to get there, you can go there in the game world. Nothing's really blocking you aside from game events or not having the right characters or items to get there. But you can always go back and forwards and all that. And a lot of times you need to because of, RPG world style exploration. But we do have loading screens in specific areas.
Yeah.
So, okay. Anyway, that said, going back to your actual question.
About the inspiration.
Yes. So the game itself was inspired by my big black kitty cat Strad, who unfortunately is the one who died last year. And I walked into my bedroom and he was laying on our bed and just this big, enormous, fluffy black beast staring back at me. He looks at me like, wow. And I'm like, Strad, you look like a big Purrtato.
And that's where it all started.
I go, that's something. So I originally actually make it as a stage-based puzzle title, where you had to connect characters together to use physics to kind of arc to collect these shards that were in the world. Wow. And I was helping out with an event during GDC that same year. I'm sorry, we technically started in December 2015, so it had been GDC 2016, an event called The Mix, hosted by Interveiw Entertainment. And once I helped get everything set up and everybody was mingling and playing games, I got the opportunity to go around and play a bunch of games myself. And I come across this game called Hue. And if you haven't seen it, it's a puzzle Metroidvania where you collect colors and change the color of the environment to sort of open up different opportunities. Like maybe the background is purple and the foreground is black. But you need to be able to, maybe there's a purple object and the background is orange or something like that. Now I'm forgetting exactly how it works. But you would then have the right color to turn the background to then work with that object in the world, like a box or something you have to stand on.
Right.
So
that sounds really cool.
It was wonderful. So I'm playing this game and I'm like, man, this really feels like it could have been a puzzle game, but they turned it into a Metroidvania instead. I could do the same thing with Purrtato. So the very next day after that event, I'm hanging out at one of the developer parties, and I meet this guy, and we're all, a bunch of people, we're all just chatting, getting super drunk, having a great time talking about video games and game development. And I started talking about that exact event, and he goes, that's my game. Because I was talking to Henry Hoffman, and it's his game. And he's a BAFTA award-winning game developer.
Wow.
And I tell him about that story, and he's going, yes, yes, yes. And I'm like, yeah, that was really cool. He goes, no, I'm excited because he's telling me this. He goes, I'm excited because you had the exact same realization I had, that this puzzle game, because you started out as a puzzle game, and he goes, I turned it into a Metroidvania, and you're getting the exact same inspiration that I had, but from my game. And he thought that was awesome. Wow. So I actually owe a lot to Purrtato becoming a, whatever you want to call it, open world Metroidvania thingy-majiggy walking simulator because of me playing his game at the Mix and mingling with him the next day. So I came back. Yeah, go ahead.
Would you no, that's fine. I enjoy your rambling. And I was just going to add this. Would you consider calling it a Hue-like?
If he allowed it, I would.
I mean, it's just helping, right?
It'd be kind of cool.
You can't help me. You can't promote my game.
I mean, honestly, it'd be kind of cool to put some sort of little homage to Hue in there somewhere. I'd have to reach out to him again and be like, so, Mr. BAFTA award-winning person, here's little red.
Honestly, I have to say, I'm doing community work with my game and marketing work, and I've been adding people that have been helping out to the credits and tagging them on social media, and they like that. People like that, and I've got room for it. My credits are pretty barren, so let's fill them up.
Credits have been something I've been very I can't think of a right word. Thoughtful. That's not the right word, but thoughtful in. Thoughtful about, because since the game's been in production for so long, I knew it was going to be a side project. It would take years to make. I didn't want to forget who's helped out, so I've actually been keeping a running list of the credits and adding people to it over the years. Awesome. I actually use a piece of software called Artisy Draft for game design, and I have a document in Artisy Draft that's just the game credits. And
is that a free software?
No, it's I think $200, but it's
well worth it.
I highly recommend it.
Okay.
Steam. Well, it's on Steam, but you can also do it standalone. They added it to Steam back when Steam started adding applications.
Wow.
But yeah,
I have to look into it. I'm sorry. When I was speaking, you were speaking too. I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, just that. I highly recommend Artisy Draft.
Okay.
Up on Steam. It's a standalone product also. Really great product. Great developers too.
Are there any other developer tools that you're using that you would also recommend for devs? I use Trello and Jira and anything I find.
I hate Trello. I honestly hate Trello.
Oh, really?
I once referred to Trello on Twitter as a burning dumpster fire, and one of my clients reached out to me and they're like, if you want to say stuff about us, you can just say it to us. I'm like, dude, I'm just talking about Trello, not you, buddy. Trello is just that crappy. No. So, without me here shit-talking things. Am I allowed to swear?
No, yeah, absolutely. I don't mind.
Fuck yeah. Okay. The things I actually do like and use, there's a great software called Hack and Plan. Well, it's a web app, but Hack and Plan is wonderful. It's sort of like Jira, but free. But they do have paid plans, but it's also free, and it's specifically meant for game development. So it has a lot of geared functionality towards game dev. So that's
a good one. I use that as well.
Yeah. Oh, glad to hear it. Of course, Photoshop, Unity. Got a bunch of stuff here on my tray. I use Spine for character animations.
I've looked into that. Is Spine free or is that one paid?
No, it's I think it's $150 for a normal license, and then $300 or an additional $200 or something like that for a pro license.
Sure, but for anyone who's not interested, that's for bone animation for 2D sprites. So if you want to make something that looks like it's got like something in its belly, you can have its belly expand with just by simply scaling a bone. So so software like that can be really useful. So the price tag, yeah, it seems a little steep, but when you make 2 or 3 games with it, it pays for itself.
Yeah, with Purrtato, it's already paid for itself. I can definitely say, even though we haven't actually made money on Purrtato yet, but the amount of work it's saved, I should say, and the amount of functionality it's allowed us.
And I can see in your walk cycle, you can see that there's some jiggling going on. Mm-hmm. You normally don't. You don't normally get that with hand animation.
There are also things in there like the clothing items that you can put on and change, since different clothing in the game affects your in-game RPG stats. The weapons you can equip and things. All of that changes thanks to the skin system that Spine already has. Plus, we have enemies in the game that we have built-in randomizations for. Like there's these little frog jellies, we call them. And the frog jelly, the color of the character changes at random between a preset number of colors we've selected. Plus, there's like little things floating inside of them, and all of that also is randomly chosen when the character is generated in the world. And all that is based on built-in functionality that Spine already has. So that's stuff we didn't have to add. I just had to program a little something to expose it for us.
Very cool. Very cool.
Good stuff, yeah. So there's that. I also use Texture Packer Pro. And for that one, I did pay for the, I think it was like $50 or something for the lifetime subscription for it.
And that's a sprite atlas maker?
It is, but it's a really, really nice one because it gives you a lot of control. Plus, it also allows things like polygonal sprites, which with a polygonal sprite, imagine you had something that was like a big arch. In a traditional sprite sheet, that area in the middle is all wasted space. But with a polygonal sprite, they could fill that with a whole bunch of other things. And then Unity has a polygonal sprite system, so it can read that arch plus all those things inside of there as different sprites without them overlapping. Wow. So I think like that's really good for efficient use of space, especially because like in Purrtato, we have a lot of assets. I mean, the Purrtato Castle area alone is a set of 4 4096 by 4096 sprite atlases. So we have there's definitely a lot of ours.
Now, I'm personally learning pixel art for the past few years, and I learned like high definition Photoshop painting when I was in college, but I haven't actually put it into a whole lot of like builds to test it. And I'm sure that there's a huge difference in working with pixel art and high resolution graphics, like you have 2D graphics. So could you go into some of the differences between like, for instance, like optimization, basically, because of the difference in memory size of that, and also just basically the resolution of the images that are being worked with? Are you? I mean, you're kind of a solo dev, so you kind of have a handle on all the stuff, but then you're also working with all these other people, so you've got other people. Are you kind of directing these other people, or are they kind of all working together? I don't know. This is kind of a weird question.
We're working together, but I do the designs, and like for Bruntal Floss, I created a soundtrack design document, which went through every single song in the entire game, gave it a suggested title. Obviously, I leave it to him to actually choose the final title of the song. A suggested title, a description, how it's using the game, screenshots, and reference images, plus 2 to 4 other existing songs out there that would be similar to this. And I would supply that to him, be like, here's what I'm thinking of. Mm-hmm. Go nuts. I give that to him, and I kind of do something similar with like the artists. You know, I give him. I would give Mario a package for different parts of the game, different characters, different areas. Mm-hmm. That is just a bunch of screenshots, reference images, descriptions of like what exists in that area. What are some key props that we need to make sure are prominent? Just themes we want to go by. How certain events might change that. Things like that. But otherwise, I definitely am not micromanaging anybody. Sure. I give a very good picture of what my image is, and then let them take it the way they see it.
And then to kind of go deeper into that, obviously it's not good to micromanage creative elements, but sometimes it can be very important to be succinct with technical details, especially when you're dealing with a lot of assets. If they're done improperly, you might have to redo a lot of assets.
Yes, very true.
So I was hoping you could go into some of the technicalities of the art, particularly, if you could.
Right. Well, I don't remember the exact numbers offhand for a lot of this, but
okay, and that's fine.
Like I mentioned, the Purrtato Castle area is 4 4096 by 4096 sprite atlases. That's actually a budget.
It's huge.
area in the game cannot have more than 4 maximum sprite atlases for just that area, which also means that if a single sprite, like let's say there's a window sprite that's used in one scene, but we also want to use it in this other scene over here, rather than loading this entire sprite atlas to get that one window, duplicate that window into the sprite atlas meant for that scene. This way, everything is very well sorted and organized. We know exactly what is used where. Of course, in addition to this, we'll also have things like the character atlases, the item atlases, the common atlases, things like that. In fact, the common atlas is important because on that is literally what it sounds like, common items. So on that, you get a lot of things like treasure chests, objects that are commonly used, in-scene UI elements, things like that. So we've done a lot to make sure that we have optimized what is in use within memory. And of course, 4096 by 4096 is pretty large. That also allows us to look really good on high-end platforms. We can also pull that down and reduce those images as needed. Like if we're on the Switch, we put it in like 720p mode versus the 1080p when it's docked, if we need to. I mean, honestly, the game ran amazing when we put it even at 1080p mode with all the full app. Because we actually showed it off on the Switch a couple years back.
Wow.
So all that is taken into consideration. The way audio is loaded in is taken into consideration. The way music is handled. We obviously, you don't want to cache every single sound effect in the entire game in an RPG, or you're going to just melt your computer. So we make sure things are sort of loaded and unloaded as needed, which Unity does a pretty good job of that on its own, but Unity also does a terrible job of that at the same time, which anybody who works with Unity, you know what I mean. So yeah, lots and lots of things like that. The one thing we have kind of going for us is being a 2D game. I mean, it technically is a 3D game, like any modern 2D game, so everything is polygonal, but everything is generally low poly, which also means when we need to use a lot of points or polys for something, we can blow that poly budget out of proportion, and we're still not even hitting like a character model in other games.
And the spine animation helps a lot with that too, because now you don't need to make as many frames of the artwork.
Exactly. We just need to make detail elements and like blinking eyes and moving mouths and things like that.
Very cool, very cool. And it looks beautiful. You know, I watched the trailer and it's very well done. Lots of cool, there's like an explosion with like bricks flying everywhere and stuff. Very cool visuals and extremely cute art style, which is, pretty popular, I would say, right now. Cute is probably going to be popular for a while, I would think, because, it's in a world like today, it's good to see something smiling every once in a while.
I just noticed people are chatting in the chat, so I'm saying hello.
Oh, that's perfect. I should be more attentive.
Yes, you can make vodka from potatoes, but try and make sure they're not sentient first. Sentient vodka is probably not something you want to drink. Maybe you do. I mean, I'm a ginger. I know all about taking souls.
And then you could also make hand sanitizer as well.
That's what's gross now.
So you've probably met a lot of different people throughout your life that have helped you to become who you are today. Could you go into any advice that you've received that you would find that was helpful? Or that you would give to someone else?
Yeah. Try to think of the right way to phrase it.
Sure. Yeah, it's a difficult question, and it's kind of important to get it right. So take your time.
Definitely, make friends with people. Don't try and always make friends with people because of what they do or where they are in their career. Focus on just decent people, but at the same time, surround yourself with positivity and, when possible, people that are more skilled or better than you. And I know that kind of conflicts what I just said, but I guess what I mean is don't become friends with somebody because they run a company or something, but do become friends with somebody because you respect them and you want to learn from them, but you also just think they're a cool person. And by doing that, you'll actually lift each other up and help each other out and be able to get ahead also, because no matter how skilled someone is, they can always learn from somebody less skilled. So everybody's kind of helping each other out that way. I mean, that's an important thing. And also remember that industries, when you get into them, like games, they're about yay big or smaller. I mean, I've traveled to different countries, and I usually meet somebody who knows of me or knows somebody I know, including people that I may not exactly get along with, and people who know my history know there are a number of those. I mean, you don't stay in any industry for 20 years and not make enemies. But just keep that in mind. People do talk. People know things. I mean, and you also just be careful of like what you say. Also, I mean, just because you know things about somebody doesn't mean other people need to know those things. Obviously, there's some cases where they do need to know. Like what happened with Nicholas last year. That was a good share. And
Yeah,
it's
heartbreaking, but
it was truly heartbreaking.
You gotta know, if you're an indie, that some of these publishers are doing some really bad things, and I don't want to go into details.
Yeah.
And if you care to know, it's on the internet. Just look up Nicholas or Nicholas. I think it's Nicholas, right? Just look up Nicholas Games, and you'll find what we're talking about. It's still all over.
Yeah. So stuff like that is good to share and talk about. But like if you know somebody who was just a jerk to you, you don't need to share that around. That's just going to look bad on you.
But on the other hand, if someone comes up to you and asks you and says, "Hey, is this person a jerk?" I don't know. Probably be honest with them.
Be honest, yeah. Just remember that people are going to be honest about you too.
That's very true. And great advice, really great advice. I very much appreciate that myself. And it's something that I'm still learning because I'm still relatively new to networking. I've only been doing it a few years. I spent a lot of time developing games in basements and stuff, and having bad internet, and just not recording video because I didn't have the capabilities to stream or anything like that. So now I'm meeting as many people as I can, and every day almost I'm reaching out to new people and doing my best to just be positive and only be good, only do good for people and only help people. That's really kind of where I'm at. Of course, the people I reach out to, it all depends. A lot of times people reach out to me, and that's how a friendship starts. But most of the time, I'm just going through different Discord servers. If you're watching the stream, you can see I've got folders on my Discord thing, and they're just full of different. I'm clicking on. I'm not on the right screen here. My bad. So yeah, these folders here are just full of different. These ones are just different individual developers. I've got all of these different very popular indie servers. This whole list here is just all really popular ones, and I just go through, and I'll post my game. Sometimes there'll be a link. Sometimes they'll just say like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And if people respond, that's where a conversation starts. It's a really great way to meet people. Also on Twitter, that's where I met you, Red, was on Twitter. I posted a question about publishers because I was looking into publishing, and I was thinking about self-publishing and getting published. And I think someone actually tagged you in the comment, and that's how we met. Is that how you remember it?
Yeah, that sounds pretty right. I remember that.
And I'm super grateful that you were personal enough to be cool with that.
Yeah,
and here we are talking.
And thank you to whoever it was, because I honestly don't remember who it was. I get tagged in a lot of things.
Yeah, I can't remember either. Yeah, and thank you as well.
Talking about Discords, we do have a Purrtato Tail Discord.
Oh yeah, let's
share that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to join it.
Yeah, here, I'm going to share it over here in your Twitch stream.
I'm going to have to find one to delete to join it, but I'm sure that I can find one to join Purrtato Tail.
We are a verified Discord server, so we actually have a static URL, which is I just typed into the Discord bar, which is I think right down about there. But it's discord.gg/Purrtato Purrtato Tail. Purrtatotail. When you join, you have a little Turing test to solve because we have issues with bots joining. But apparently, that's just an issue verified servers have. Bots will attack your server endlessly. So we put a little Turing tail in place to protect all of you fans out there.
I love that. A Turing tail.
The Turing tail, yes.
Very cool. Very cool. And you've got your social media on Twitter as well. You've got a whole bunch of people on there. Is that just at Red Vonix?
Well, we have Red Vonix, there's also a Purrtato Tail. But if you go on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, pretty much anything, you can find Red Vonix or Purrtato Tail. Or if you're really awesome, both.
Yeah, very cool. Did you want to talk anything about just your hobbies, games that you're playing, anything outside of business that you want to go over? Personal stuff?
Wait, there's an outside of business?
Sometimes. I mean, sometimes you have to go to the grocery store, right?
The grocery store goes with us.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Especially in the COVID world. Okay. So, I mean, I do a lot of cooking. I mean, I'm a tubby guy, so
Cooking.
A ton of cooking.
I love cooking.
I sometimes share recipes. In fact, the Purrtato Discord, we have an entire food channel where everybody's always posting to. So I do that. I occasionally brew beer. Haven't in a while, but I'm meaning to do some again.
Very nice.
I won't go into details, but I'm pretty heavily involved in the local kink community, and non-monogamy is a very major part of my life. I'm always very open about that. For anybody who actually wants to talk about that, just message me. Very big into supporting things that need to be supported, especially right now, like Black Lives Matter and all of that. I've especially lately been sharing on Twitter a lot of information about that because that's far more important than my own marketing. So a lot of that. Obviously, I do some gaming, surprisingly enough. So I found over the years that PC gaming, which used to be my thing, now I'm not so much into PC gaming. I think because I sit here 7 to 16 hours a day making games. So now I prefer to sit over in my living room and play games in the consoles. Like I said earlier, I just finished Death Stranding, which is a fantastic title, and I'm definitely going to come back to it probably later this year and do another playthrough. I'm kind of thinking about what I want to play next. I'm about a quarter of the way through Grand Theft Auto 5, so I'm probably going to pick that up and finish that, and maybe Last of Us, so do some gaming. I've been recently getting more into foraging also. I haven't actually gotten a chance to go out and do it, but I'm doing a lot of research into like local mushrooms and other plants.
Like morel hunting?
Exactly. Yes,
Nice.
and morels are one of the like, they're delicious, and they're one of the starter ones too, because there's only two things that look like morels, and it's relatively easy to tell them apart from one another.
I did not know there was anything else that looked like a morel, and so I've just been eating whatever I find.
Well, it's funny.
There's no morels in Arizona.
Yeah, well, once you know what a morel looks like, and you know what the other ones look like, it's relatively easy to tell them apart. Travis, yes, I finally downloaded the demo of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I got all the way to the end of the macro reactor, got all the way to almost defeating the boss, and the game crashed.
Oh, wow.
I died.
Wow. It's funny, they kept pushing back the development, and then they've got a game with a game-breaking bug. And they're not indie, so
no.
If you're indie and you have a game-breaking bug, don't feel bad.
Oh no, trust me, I hate breaking bugs.
Oh yeah, I do too.
Well, the weird thing about Final Fantasy VII Remake, try and find the demo in the PS4 store. If you search for it, you can't find it. You actually have to go to like a special free games menu, which is the only place in the entire store you can find it. Now watch everybody message me on Twitter after this to be like, no, you're wrong. Look, here's a video of you being wrong. And I'm like, okay, we'll bring it. Because I couldn't find it.
That's cool. So what consoles are you on as far as playing?
I've pretty much got everything right now. Switch is my main platform. But I got PlayStation 4, which I literally bought for Death Stranding. Xbox One. And I think that's everything right now.
Oh, yeah, pretty much, right? Covers all the bases. How about VR? Any VR?
I technically have VR because one of my clients is a VR project, which is a really cool game called Redemption's Guild. You should check out, which is a full virtual reality MMO. And they brought me in to sort of help out with some wrap up stuff and just get the game to where it needs to be to get that ship. But yeah, they're a great company. Redemption's Guild, check them out. They got a Discord. Very fun VR MMO. You get to go in there and swing the swords and fight the enemies and work as a team.
Sounds really, really cool. Not to go too deep into it, but is it free or is it paid, or how do I sign up?
I don't actually know if it's free or paid.
I'm gonna have to figure that out because that sounds really cool.
I believe it's paid, and it's something I really should know. And Mike from Unlit Games is gonna message me after this and go, "Seriously, what the fuck?"
Well, now I've put you on the spot, and I feel bad.
That's okay.
But, anyone who's listening, I'm sure we'll be able to find it.
Yeah, and look up
what's the title?
Redemption's Guild. Here, I'll put it into the chat.
Perfect. Redemption's Guild.
Redemption's Guild by Unlit. Oh my god! And if you look up Unlit Games on Twitter, I believe that is their. Yeah, that's their Twitter account. You can follow them and learn more about the game. But yeah, that's kind of like my main contract project that I've been doing right now.
Perfect.
Great people, great team, great game.
Very cool. Yeah, and I wish I would have set up the chat to be overlaid. I forgot to do that, so that's a little unfortunate. But thank you for reading the chat and watching it throughout the interview.
Yeah, no problem. I went over and saw people chatting. I'm like, oh crap, I should be doing something.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone in chat wants to ask any questions, definitely feel free.
Yeah, come on.
Nearing the end, so if anyone has questions, let's hear it.
Hey, let's just sit awkwardly for a moment and wait for questions.
I think that was awkward enough, right? No?
Nothing.
Crickets.
I guess you all know everything you possibly ever want to know already.
Well, when you ask for questions, that's when you don't receive them.
It's like staring at the oncoming train. You know exactly what you want to say, and then somebody's like, okay, here's some questions. Want to set up my VPS servers? What's a VPS server? You mean VPN? No. No, I did not say what kind of question, and I was intentional on that. You can ask me anything. Any plans for multiplayer? For Purrtato Tail, it's crossed my mind, but since it's an extremely story-driven game, it's really something we would have had to think of closer to the beginning of development. So not for Purrtato Tail, but if Purrtato sells well, it's technically the first in a trilogy of stories. So if we get to a sequel, chances are, yes, there will be multiplayer in the sequel, cooperative multiplayer to sort of play through this whole Metroidvania-ish game. What are your thoughts on WebGL, WebGPU? It's better than Flash. It gets the job done. I'm not super experienced with it, but I have worked with it. It's a little annoying, but better than Flash. In terms of targeting the browser as a platform, yes, but no. So there's definitely areas for that, and without going into details, obviously, because it's kind of considered more a safer work thing. There's a lot of opportunity making the browser as a platform for adult video games, because unfortunately, a lot of people are still very uppity about those, which cause a lot of platforms to not support them. But obviously, Steam has opened up, which is good, but at the same time also bad because of the way they handled it. And that's a whole other topic. But as a result, there's a lot of opportunity for things that don't have a market in other places to exist on browser. But unfortunately, it also means you could get really bad things like racism positive titles on web platforms, which is gross. But on a more technical side, we still have, in my opinion, too much of a separation of different kinds of browsers. If you had most people using the same browser, then sure, but since we don't, we're still kind of fighting through everything is too different. I think the future could be there, but it's not there now, and as a business owner, I personally would not consider WebGL a viable direction.
And if I could just piggyback off that a little bit, I've been playing with WebGL with my project, and I found it to be really useful to get certain people to start playing the game that maybe wouldn't have just downloaded the game, or maybe they're just looking for WebGL. And this is on itch.io, just to be clear. Itch.io, Newgrounds, and GameJolt are the 3 platforms where I'm hosting the WebGL version of my game. And Unity, it makes it really easy to start, but it actually gets really difficult the further you get down the rabbit hole. I'm working on an action game, and action games aren't actually suited very well for WebGL, unfortunately. I have a problem with the player, or the ball that the player has to hit. They go through the colliders, and it's an issue because there's frames dropping, and people are saying, why is this not running on my good computer? Well, sometimes if the computer is just okay, the browser is not going to be able to handle a game on top of the internet and stuff with all that. It's better for text adventures and stuff like that. It really is. It's better for puzzle games. And saving is a whole nother issue. Like trying to save, also trying to link to other websites is really difficult. You have to avoid pop-up blockers and all that stuff. Somehow there's a whole bunch of tricks to that. But having learned all that stuff, my game is actually not functioning on the WebGL version because somehow I broke it. So the WebGL version is 6 updates behind. I'm probably going to take it down.
Kind of on that, one thing that WebGL really is good for, though, and I would even use it for, in a business standpoint, is demos. And I don't mean demoing to the public, but let's say you wanted to send a demo to Nintendo or a publisher or something, and you had a game that really you could get away with doing it in a WebGL build. That would be a good way to do it, especially like you're doing, on itch.io, to get more eyes on a product even before it's officially a product. Because a lot of the famous indie games did start out as what would you call them?
Games.
Twitch games. The term I'm trying to think of, as game jam titles.
Oh, and yeah.
Jam titles often become itch games, and then people are like, oh my god, people like this, and then they turn to an actual game, and then they become one of the 0.1% of massive indie successes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and on that note, WebGL is perfect for game jams. If you're looking for feedback, it's perfect for that. It's an easy way to get feedback, but it is prone to error. When the first game jam I did, the WebGL had a bug that the download didn't. That's just the way it went. You know what I mean? But you learn as you go.
Unity, right?
What's that?
You said you're using Unity also, right?
Yes, I'm a big Unity fan. I had some experience playing with a few different engines when I first started, but I didn't get very far until I found Unity, and that's when I was like, oh, this became a lot easier. I was able to make a prototype in one day by the time I found it, so I stuck with it.
Yeah, and Unity is really good for that. But back in the day, we used the Torque engine all the time, Torque 3D and Torque 2D, and I never worked for Garage Games, but they did contract me for various things. Mm-hmm. And I actually worked on a bunch of things I was trying to share with them. I rewrote the entire rendering pipeline for Torque 2D at one point, and boosted the frame rate for games from something like 30 to 80 FPS on the iPhone, things like that. And honestly, I kind of miss those low-level programming days back then, even work with Unity, especially with a lot of choices Unity is making these days, which we don't need to get into. But I'm definitely thinking that in the future, I'm probably going to just write my own 2D game engine, which I've been doing some research and planning on that, and I already kind of know which game we're going to pilot that with and see how things go.
Wow.
Especially because we've written a tremendous amount of technology for Purrtato and other games, but most of everything we've written is just raw C#. It doesn't require any particular game engine as long as it's a C# engine. So that's kind of what we're going to do, down the line. But things like Purrtato will probably always be in Unity because that's where we started. There's a lot of that's still Unity specific, and it would be a tremendous amount of work to support that. And I mean, I make indie games, and I'm broke. I'm lucky.
Right. Third-party support is very helpful for indies. Well, depending on the party, of course. Yeah, man, that's a really good point.
Also, I need to call out Travis Torque. Yeah, the good old days. Back when the company actually cared about the community.
I never worked with Torque, but I did get my start actually with XNA. Is kind of when I started, and so I was coding 2D engines when I first started, and it was taking me forever, and that's why I stopped doing it that way. But I was also just beginning. I remember learning to code a camera. It took me like a week. And then Unity, you just drag and drop it. You've got a camera. So
yeah, I just learned yesterday. I was watching a video about the history of Stardew Valley, and Stardew Valley is originally an XNA title.
Oh wow! Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense considering when you started working on it, right?
It's a whole custom, at least by the way it sounded, its entire custom C# engine and setup and everything. And what was his name? Eric? God, I can't remember his name. Concerned Ape. Yeah, he wrote it all as an XNA title and then turned it into a non-XNA title, and here we have it. And believe me,
and now it's on Switch. It's very cool.
Techie Crow, yeah, I think it's still developed in XNA. I mean, it's technically XNA is C#, C# is XNA. XNA was just, if I remember right, and
it's a framework.
Yeah, it's a framework. That's what I was trying to say. It's a framework for it, and just the specific XNA interface portion of the framework, I believe, is gone now, but it's still C#. So it's still
and thanks for joining, Techie. I really appreciate it. Techie's awesome, by the way. Everyone should follow Techie. But so the way that I came to my understanding of how the evolution worked is that XNA became deprecated probably before I even found out about it. I was having trouble getting good valid information when I was learning, so I was probably learning in deprecated language and not even realize it, or something like that. But I started, GML and all the other stuff, and just started down the rabbit hole until I found Unity. But what was happening on the other side of things was that mono develop occurred after XNA and kind of took that framework and just like absorbed it for making Unity on Macs actually back in the day, because Unity actually got its start on Macs only. And so mono develop actually started doing its thing. Am I wrong?
No, Gooball.
Gooball. Oh, I thought you said you're wrong.
No, Gooball.
I was hoping you corrected me.
It was Mac only. And you
what's
said
that?
Gooball? No, when you started, Gooball was like their thing and how they demoed off. And it was like, oh my God, look, it's pretty. Look, we have Gooball. And it's Mac only.
I believe it was a lot of the games that were like very simple 3D stuff for Mac. That was the only thing you could do to make it, right? I mean, unless you were coding it all yourself at the time, which was hard to do on a Mac because most games were made on PC. So Unity kind of had its thing with Mac, and eventually when it brought over to PC, that's when mono develop became like a integral part of what we're doing today, I guess, as developers. I don't know. It kind of still has XNA in its blood, I guess, is where I'm coming from. But what's really interesting to me, and maybe this is a tangent, but that XNA blood goes way, 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 way back to Doom. Because when Doom was approached by Windows, they had this guy create DirectX to port it. And DirectX got taken, it was Microsoft, so it got taken and used as XNA to create a language that indies could use to help with the indie marketplace on the Xbox. So I mean that's how it all progressed like that. Just to deep dive into Techie's question there. I find that stuff extremely interesting. I don't know, and it all relates to Doom, which is I love Doom. So
the good old days.
The good old days, yes, exactly. What were your favorites from that era?
In terms of games or just development?
I would say games, but if you were developing back then, sure.
I was making levels for games just for fun.
Sure.
But I was all about Doom and Duke Nukem 3D.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I kind of started modding for them, but I didn't get very far.
In fact, I remember making levels for Duke Nukem 3D, and I kept finding his email address hidden throughout the levels. So I emailed them, and it turns out it was the level lord. It was like level at 3drealms.com, and I even tried to email them like 3 or 4 years ago, and yeah, he doesn't have it anymore. But I just thought it was so cool. I kept finding this because I'm editing the existing levels in the game, and in Build 3D, was the name of the editor, you could see where objects were, and I kept seeing these like groups of tightly grouped objects in straight lines, and when I would zoom in on them, it was always the email address. So I had to email and be like, hey, I'm editing levels for fun, and I keep finding your email address. Who the fuck are you?
So were these made with actual sectors then in the software?
They were just made with because Duke Nukem 3D had sort of like decals you could put. So they were
okay, I see.
Decals, yeah, and they had individual decals for each English letter.
Yeah, no, I remember that. Yeah, I actually did have quite a bit more fun with the level builder engine for Duke Nukem, but I think I started with Doom, and I like the game of Doom. I like Doom more than Duke Nukem, I think, just because it was a staple of my childhood and scared the crap out of me when I was like first grade or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like to cover? We're kind of coming to the end here.
No, I think we've gone over everything. I mean, I can't think of anything else. Can any of you think of anything we should talk about?
I'm thinking for a second, but yeah, chat. If the chat has anything they'd like to talk about, now's the time.
I can be like Dora and stare at it, you know.
Oh, how about books? Do you read books?
Not as many as I should, to be honest. Last one I was reading was his Dark Materials series, and I read the first 2 books and got like halfway through the third one, which The Subtle Knife. That's the second one. I forget the name of the third one. But I got about halfway through the third one, and then I remember we were moving apartment, and I just didn't pick it back up after I moved. But I do want to read that. There's a handful of books about non-monogamy I want to read. Some other fiction books that I'm curious about as well. Yeah.
Cool. Right on. Yeah, you know, personally, I got started with reading with nonfiction, moved on to fiction. I've been actually listening to a lot more. Well, I work full time on top of game development, so it gives me the opportunity to listen to something all day. But also, I realized that I'm slightly dyslexic, so reading has been painful for me my whole life because of it. And that's, yeah, having the ability to listen to words these days is pretty cool. So
definitely for you, yeah, for sure. That's a really cool thing to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. I very much appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, I think we covered just about anything. So everyone, go to Steam, search for Purrtato Tail. That's Purrtato Tail, right? Purrtato Tail, and wishlist that thing because it looks awesome. And Vonix, do you have a idea of when you kind of want to start? No, probably not. Still a long ways away.
Every time I give a date, it gets pushed back because we have not been able to find funding.
That's
so. If you're watching this and you think the game looks good and you want to throw money at it, you'll just help it get released all that sooner. Right now, we're probably looking at sometime next year, maybe a later 2021. I wanted to do early 2021, but we couldn't find what we needed to do it. You know, publishers are funding, so maybe late 2021, depending.
Cool. So everyone wish list, so that way you definitely get the email when it finally comes out, but also join the Discord, so that way you can be part of the community and learn a lot, because like I said, and the reason why I brought Red on is because he's a huge resource. I mean, just massive resource. Not to mention, he knows how to do a whole lot of stuff that I haven't had the experience with, or I haven't even had it come my way. So if something comes my way, I need networks like Red to make sure that I can figure it out. And people like Red are happy to help. So definitely join his community. You know, say hi to him. Just be happy. You know, spread your food pics on his Discord. If you got questions, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer.
I promise I won't bite without consent.
Yeah. So what's your favorite dish before we leave here?
It tends to change frequently, but I'm kind of still partial to what I had in China like 8,000 times last year because I loved it. Well,
Okay.
I think it was. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of Meisei Kodoro, which is it's a steamed pork belly in preserved mustard greens. It's phenomenal. It's so good.
Wow. So I never had mustard greens, preserved or not. And I've only had pork belly once, but I love mustard, and I could imagine that the flavor of mustard would make the pork belly taste so much better.
It does, but the greens don't really have a strong mustardy taste, I didn't think. But they do just have this wonderful savory flavor to them just as well. So, yeah, I highly recommend that. And also, another dish I had over there was mapo tofu, which is, tofu with ground pork and lots of spices. And there's some restaurants that serve it in America, but I've honestly never had one that tasted anything like what I had in China. So I just make it myself to get the right flavor.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think I've ever had authentic Chinese food, and I honestly don't really like American Chinese food.
It's greasy. American Chinese food is so greasy.
Yeah, it's just not something that I like. I love Thai food, Vietnamese food. I love a whole bunch of different Asian cuisines. But yeah, just American Chinese food. So if I were to have authentic Chinese food, I'm sure that I would love it because it's just we need it here. I mean, that's what we need. We need more authentic Chinese restaurants here in America. Really, I mean, come on now.
Here's a pro tip: if you go to a Chinese restaurant and they have beef tendon on the menu, that's a really good sign of authenticity because Americanized ones will never even consider putting that on the menu. That
scares people away. Yeah.
That, and I've also seen crispy pig intestine on menus in American Chinese restaurants, and that's also another really good sign. But I also love crispy pig intestine. Which if you ever have fucking baking duck, people, seriously. But yeah, so look for things like that.
Wow. Yeah, no, I think just Googling it might help, right? Because then it'll come up on a menu somewhere.
And starting point. I read when somebody asked some natives from China, what is a good sign of how to find a really good traditional Chinese restaurant in America? And one of the things they actually said, as silly as is to go into a restaurant, and if you see a lot of people quietly, like heads hung over their bowls, maybe not looking as happy as they could, that's a good place only because it means it's a comfort food place, but it's Chinese comfort food. So people who grew up over there then came over here and they need that taste of home to cheer up or whatever. They're going to go there. That's how you're going to know also that it is more of a traditional place.
Wow. That's a really good tip. I'm really glad that I asked you that. I just learned something that's going to change my life, I'm sure. I'm never going to turn down Chinese. When someone says, hey, let's get Chinese, I'm never going to be like, no. I'm going to be like, let's find authentic Chinese.
And somebody just mentioned they saw chicken feet in the menu. Yeah. Chicken feet's another pretty good sign. A little more accepted, I found in America, than other things like crispy pig intestine. But yeah, it's still not going to be common on. You're not going to see that on Panda Express.
But yeah, I love cooking too. My crock pot does most of the cooking for me, unfortunately.
Crock pots are wonderful.
Yeah, oh my god, it's like the best dev tool I have. It's analog. All right, well, Red, I want to thank you so much for spreading your insight, being a great person, having a great community, making an awesome game, and joining the podcast. And just
thank you very much, and thanks for having me in my filthy office. I've got all this laundry behind me I need to fold or put away,
hey,
except for it's not folded.
I like the whiteboard though.
Yeah, I wish I had really good room to put it. We moved into this apartment and we've got like no space and no storage, so there's a lot of stuff that's just sitting around boxes because we look in the box and go, where the hell are we going to put this? I guess back in the box. So we're probably moving next year because of that. We need somewhere we can actually, live and not just store shit.
Sure. Yeah, and Colorado, the rent's pretty expensive right now too. So,
Our apartment is over $2,000 a month. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, that's twice. That's probably twice what I'm paying. So yeah.
I'm looking forward to having an actual affordable rent.
Wow.
Especially as an indie developer that makes so little money.
Yeah. No, can't blame you there, man. But yeah, I feel you, man. Last year, a couple years ago, I was in an even smaller apartment, man. You could see every corner from the webcam. It was pathetic, but you know what? You do what you got to do, and you'll get there for sure. And sometimes you got to make sacrifices, So yeah.
Definitely.
Is there any more questions in chat by chance?
No, people are just saying how much they enjoyed the stream.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Yeah, thanks everyone in chat.
And
everyone on Facebook, anyone on Periscope, Twitch, all of the different platforms. Thank you a ton. Thanks for joining Red Vonix's Discord. And of course, anyone who's interested in presenting their own game to me to do this interview, there's an application on the Twitter for the IGDR podcast. That's IGDR_podcast. You can find that on Twitter. Super easy to find. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one. Thank you so much for tuning in to Indie Game Dev Report. And check out Indie Game Dev Report on YouTube. And you can find that if you check out our Twitter page, IGDR_podcast. And also anchor.fm/IGDR. So you'll be able to find the link to the YouTube channel there. And there's a application on the Twitter if you want to get your indie game involved and join the Discord or anything like that. There's a list of links that you can access from the Twitter. Thanks everyone again. Have a good one.